My name is Jessica Morgan, and I'm 32 years old. What I'm about to tell you is the story of how I went from family disgrace to the person my family now calls ma'am. The night they threw me out is burned into my memory like a scar that won't fade. I stood in the living room of my childhood home, the same room where I took my first steps, celebrated birthdays that got smaller each year, and slowly learned that my parents' love had conditions I could never meet. "You are a disgrace to this family." My father's voice shook the walls, his face twisted with a rage I'd seen directed at me my entire life. My mother didn't even look at me. She just stared at the family portrait on the mantel, the one where I'm barely visible in the back corner. "Your brother is a pilot, Jessica. A pilot. And you, what are you?" "Nothing." My younger sister shifted uncomfortably on the couch, her eyes down. She'd learned early not to defend me. It never ended well. "It's time you leave this house, loser." My father spat the words like poison. "You're 32 years old, and you have nothing to show for your existence. You're an embarrassment to the Morgan name." I should have felt destroyed. I should have begged. I should have broken down like I did when I was 16 and 20 and 25, all the other times they made me feel like I was born wrong, like being their daughter was somehow my greatest failure. But this time, something different happened. I smiled. Not a bitter smile, not a fake smile, a genuine, peaceful smile that came from somewhere deep inside me, a place they never could touch, no matter how hard they tried. I picked up the duffel bag I'd quietly packed that afternoon. I'd known this moment was coming. In a family where love is measured and distributed like rations, I'd been starving for 32 years. And I was finally ready to leave the table. "Goodbye," I said simply, my voice steady and calm. My father's face turned purple. "That's it? No apology? No begging? What kind of daughter are you?" I looked at him, really looked at him, maybe for the last time as his daughter seeking approval. "I have nothing to apologize for. But thank you. You've just set me free." My mother finally turned to face me, her expression cold. "You'll come crawling back. Girls like you always do. You have nowhere to go. No one to turn to. You need us." I adjusted my bag on my shoulder. Maybe I did once. Not anymore. I walked out that door at 9:47 p.m. on a cold November evening. The porch light that used to guide me home as a child flickered behind me. I didn't look back. I couldn't afford to. I had $200 in my wallet, a phone with 32% battery, and a secret my family never bothered to discover. Because here's the thing about being invisible in your own family. You learn to build a life they can't see. You learn to succeed in silence. You learn that the people who should celebrate you the most are sometimes the ones who can hurt you the worst. For 2 days, I disappeared from their world completely. 2 days of silence that would change everything. Because on day 3, they turned on the evening news. And what they saw made my father drop his coffee mug. Made my mother grab the edge of the kitchen counter to steady herself. Made my pilot brother, the golden child, the favorite, the one they compared me to every single day of my life, call me with a shaking voice. This is the story of how the family loser became the person even the golden child had to answer to. This is the story of how being thrown away became the greatest gift I never asked for. This is the story of a daughter who was told she was nothing and decided to become everything, without their permission, without their approval, without their presence. This is the story of redemption without apology, success built in shadows, and the moment I realized that being rejected by people who never truly saw me wasn't a curse. It was a liberation. My name is Jessica Morgan. And this is how I went from sleeping in my car to being called boss by the brother they said I should be more like. Buckle up. Because what happened next shocked everyone, including me. I stand in the center of the living room, my duffel bag at my feet, and for the first time in my life, I'm not trembling. My father's face is crimson, veins bulging at his temples like they might burst through his skin. His finger jabs the air between us, each thrust punctuating words designed to shatter me. "You are a disgrace to this family." The chandelier above us sways slightly from the force of his voice, casting shifting shadows across the family photos lining the walls. Photos where I'm always positioned at the edge, half out of frame, as if the camera itself knew I didn't belong. My mother stands by the fireplace, arms crossed, her expression carved from ice. She won't even grant me the dignity of eye contact. The silence between my father's words feels heavier than the accusations themselves, and I realize this moment has been building for 32 years. My mother finally speaks, her voice sharp and clinical, like a doctor delivering a terminal diagnosis. Your brother is a pilot, Jessica. Do you understand what that means? He wears a uniform. He has respect. People look up to him. She pauses, and I can see her searching for the cruelest comparison. And you, what do you have? What have you ever accomplished that we could be proud of? My younger sister Emma shifts on the couch, her fingernails digging into the armrest. I catch her eye for just a second, and I see it. The apology she'll never say out loud, the understanding that speaking up for me would put a target on her back. She's learned the survival rules of this house. Stay quiet. Stay invisible. Let Jessica take the hits. I don't blame her anymore. My father steps closer, and I smell the bourbon on his breath mixed with the aftershave he's worn since I was a child. Scents that used to mean safety, but now trigger something closer to nausea. It's time you leave this house, loser. He draws out that last word, savoring it, like he's been waiting years to say it with this much venom. You're 32 years old, Jessica. 32. Most women your age have husbands, children, careers worth mentioning. You have nothing. You are nothing. The grandfather clock in the hallway ticks loudly in the silence that follows. 8 seconds pass. 12. I count them. My mother examines her manicure. Emma stares at the floor, and I realize they're waiting for me to break, to cry, to beg for another chance like I always have before. But something fundamental has shifted inside me, like tectonic plates finally settling after decades of strain. My lips curve into a smile, not forced, not bitter, but genuinely peaceful. It starts small and spreads across my face, and I watch confusion flicker in my father's eyes. This isn't the script we've followed for 32 years. I'm supposed to apologize, to promise I'll do better, to shrink myself even smaller. Instead, I bend down and pick up my duffel bag with steady hands. The weight feels lighter than it should, or maybe I'm just finally strong enough to carry it. Goodbye, I say, my voice clear and calm. The word hangs in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. My father's confusion morphs into rage. His hands clench into fists at his sides. That's it, he roars, his voice cracking slightly. No apology? No explanation? No begging us to reconsider? He takes another step toward me, and for a moment, I think he might actually grab me, physically prevent me from leaving. What kind of daughter are you? We raised you, fed you, put a roof over your head, and this is how you repay us. My mother finally looks at me, really looks at me, and I see something flicker behind her eyes. Is it doubt? Concern? Or just annoyance that I'm not following the script? You'll come crawling back, she says, her voice dripping with certainty. Girls like you always do. You have nowhere to go, Jessica. No money. No real friends. No one who actually cares about you. You need us. She straightens her pearl necklace, a gesture of superiority I've seen 1,000 times. I adjust the bag on my shoulder and meet my mother's gaze directly, something I've trained myself not to do because it always made things worse. Maybe I did once, I say quietly, each word measured and deliberate. Not anymore. I turn toward the door, and Emma makes a small sound, something between a gasp and a sob, but she doesn't move, doesn't speak. The rules are too deeply ingrained. I walk past the console table where my high school graduation photo used to sit until it was replaced by another picture of my brother in his pilot uniform. Past the coat rack, where my jacket was always hung on the last hook, the one that's slightly broken. Past my father, who stands frozen in impotent rage, unable to comprehend that his favorite weapon, his disapproval, has finally lost its power over me. The front door opens with a soft click that sounds deafening in the silence. Cold November air rushes in, sharp and clean, carrying the scent of rain. I step onto the porch, and the door closes behind me with a finality that resonates in my chest. The porch light flickers, It's been broken for 3 months, and my father never fixed it despite my offers to help, casting unstable shadows across the driveway. I don't look back at the house, at the windows where I know they're watching. My car is parked at the curb, a modest sedan with a dent in the passenger door from an accident 2 years ago that my father still brings up as evidence of my incompetence. I unlock it, toss my bag in the back seat, and slide behind the wheel. My hands rest on the steering wheel for a moment, and I take one deep breath. Then another. Then I start the engine, and I drive away from the only home I've ever known. What they don't know, what they couldn't possibly know because they never once asked, is that I've been preparing for this moment for 3 years. And in 2 days, everything they think they know about me will shatter like glass. The memories hit me in waves as I drive through the darkened streets, each one a small cut that bled for years before finally scabbing over. I'm 8 years old at the dinner table, holding up a spelling test marked with a perfect score and a gold star. My father glances at it for exactly 2 seconds before turning to my brother. Michael got selected for the advanced math program, he announces, his voice swelling with pride. My mother claps her hands together. Oh, that's wonderful. We should celebrate. Ice cream after dinner? I lower my test slowly, fold it in half, and tuck it under my plate. Nobody notices. Nobody asks. The gold star faces down against the wooden table, and I learn my first lesson. Achievement doesn't matter if nobody's watching. I eat my dinner in silence while they plan Michael's celebration, and something small and vital inside me begins to wither. Fast forward 6 years. I'm 14, standing in the high school auditorium in my choir dress, waiting for the spring concert to begin. I scan the audience for my parents, my stomach tight with anticipation. The auditorium fills with families, cameras ready, flowers in hand. The lights dim, and in that moment before the music starts, I spot them, my parents, sitting 3 rows back. Relief floods through me. They came. They actually came. But then I noticed my father checking his watch. My mother whispered something to him. And exactly 17 minutes into the concert, right before my solo, they stand up and leave.
No explanation. No wave goodbye.
Just empty seats where they sat. I later learned they left to pick up Michael from flight simulator practice, which ran late. His hobby was more important than my moment. I sing my solo to an audience of strangers, hit every note perfectly, and receive a standing ovation from everyone except the 2 people who should have been proudest. The comparisons became the soundtrack of my childhood, a constant loop of inadequacy that played in every room of that house. Why can't you be more like your brother? At breakfast. Michael never gave us this kind of trouble at dinner. Your brother was already working part-time by your age when I asked for lunch money. Every birthday party of mine got smaller, 15 people at age 7, 8 people at age 10, just immediate family by age 13. Meanwhile, Michael's celebrations expanded, elaborate affairs with themes and caterers and guest lists. By age 16, my parents stopped acknowledging my birthday at all unless I reminded them, and even then it was a begrudging card with a generic message. To our daughter, happy birthday signed by both of them in my mother's handwriting. Michael's birthdays involved surprise parties and thoughtful gifts and social media posts my mother crafted like press releases. The message was clear, reinforced daily through 1,000 small cruelties. Love was a finite resource in our home, and Michael had claimed it all. College was supposed to be my escape, my chance to build an identity beyond Michael's disappointing sister. I worked 3 part-time jobs to supplement the minimal financial support my parents provided. They paid Michael's tuition in full but told me I needed to learn responsibility and cover half of mine. I studied late into the night, fueled by coffee and spite, determined to prove something to people who had stopped watching. I graduated summa cum laude with a degree in business technology. My graduation fell on the same weekend as Michael's promotion ceremony at his regional airline. He was moving from first officer to captain. My parents sat me down 3 weeks ago. We can't be in 2 places at once, Jessica. You understand. My father's tone suggested it wasn't really a question. Michael's ceremony is a huge career milestone. Your graduation is just, well, you'll have other accomplishments. I attended my college graduation alone, walked across that stage to receive my honors distinction, and took a selfie with my diploma because there was nobody there to photograph me. The pattern is calcified over the next decade. I stopped sharing good news because the response was always the same. Distracted acknowledgement followed immediately by a pivot to Michael. That's nice, dear. Did you hear your brother is being considered for international routes? I stopped inviting them to things because watching them check their phones or make excuses to leave early hurts worse than their absence. I stopped expecting birthday calls and holiday visits and simple acknowledgments of my existence. I built a life in the margins of theirs, a ghost haunting the edges of family photos, present but never truly seen. And somewhere in that decade, I made a decision. If they wouldn't celebrate my victories, they wouldn't witness them either. I started keeping secrets. Small ones at first, a promotion at work I didn't mention, a side project I developed in my spare time, investments I made with money I saved. Then bigger secrets. Much bigger. The real breaking point came at last year's Thanksgiving. Michael arrived in his pilot uniform because he had a flight later that evening and didn't have time to change. My parents beamed like he'd won the Nobel Prize. Captain Morgan, my father kept saying, clinking his wine glass against Michael's. Captain Morgan in the house. They laughed at the rum joke for the 20th time. I'd been at the table for 45 minutes, and nobody had asked me a single question.
Not one.
When I finally spoke up during a lull in the Michael Appreciation Parade and mentioned I'd been promoted to senior project manager, my mother blinked at me like she'd forgotten I could talk. That's nice, honey, she said absently, before turning back to Michael. Now tell us more about the Paris route. Is the layover long enough to see the Eiffel Tower? I excused myself to the bathroom and stared at my reflection in the mirror, this grown woman with dark circles under her eyes, still begging for crumbs from people who saw her as an inconvenience. That night, sitting in my apartment after the disastrous Thanksgiving dinner, I made a decision that changed everything. I stopped trying to be enough for them. I stopped measuring my worth by their attention. I stopped waiting for the moment they'd finally see me. Instead, I poured every ounce of energy into the business I'd been building quietly for 3 years, a tech platform I'd developed nights and weekends, something I'd never mentioned to them because I knew they'd find ways to diminish it. I lined up investors, filed patents, hired developers, and built something bigger than their small imaginations could conceive. And I did it all in complete silence, in the shadows they'd force me to inhabit. Because here's what they never understood. Being invisible gave me freedom. They weren't watching, which meant they couldn't criticize, couldn't compare, couldn't crush. And by the time they finally noticed me again, it would be too late. I would already be untouchable. The question wasn't whether they'd regret treating me like I was nothing. The question was whether I'd still care when they did. The parking lot of the 24-hour diner becomes my temporary home, and there's something grimly poetic about that. I recline the driver's seat as far as it goes, which isn't far enough for comfort, and watch the red neon sign flicker against my windshield. Eat here, it blinks, missing the apostrophe, missing the urgency it probably once had. It's 11:47 p.m., and the temperature has dropped to 43 degrees. I can see my breath forming small clouds in the car's interior. I'm wearing 2 sweatshirts, and I've draped my jacket over my legs like a blanket. The leather seat creaks every time I shift position, and outside, the sound of passing cars on the highway creates a constant white noise that should be soothing but isn't. My phone sits on the dashboard, battery at 28%, and the screen is dark because I can't afford to waste power. In my wallet, I have $217 in cash and a debit card connected to an account I've kept hidden from my family for 3 years. Sleep doesn't come easily when your entire world has just collapsed and reconstructed itself simultaneously. Every time I close my eyes, I see my father's furious face and hear my mother's cutting assessment of my worth. But underneath the pain sits something unexpected. Relief. Pure, crystalline relief. I'm 32 years old, and for the first time since childhood, nobody is monitoring my failures. Nobody is comparing me to an impossible standard. Nobody is making me feel like my existence is an apology I owe them. I shift in the seat again, finding a slightly less uncomfortable position, and I let myself acknowledge the truth I've been avoiding. Being thrown out by my family is the best thing that's ever happened to me. The thought should feel devastating, should trigger guilt or shame. Instead, it feels like the first honest thing I've admitted to myself in years. Morning arrives with harsh sunlight that burns through my windshield at 6:14 a.m. My back screams in protest as I sit up, every vertebra announcing its displeasure. I grab my small toiletry bag from the duffel in the back seat and head into the diner, moving stiffly like someone decades older. The bathroom is surprisingly clean, industrial but maintained, and I lock myself in the handicap stall because it has more room. I change out of yesterday's clothes, brush my teeth at the sink, and wash my face with cold water that shocks me fully awake. The mirror shows a woman who looks tired but determined, dark circles under her eyes but fire in them too. I apply minimal makeup, enough to look professional, and pull my hair into a neat ponytail. By 6:42 a.m., I look like someone who slept in a proper bed, and nobody entering this diner would guess otherwise. I order coffee and oatmeal at the counter, $3.75, the cheapest breakfast on the menu, and sit in a booth near the window. My phone buzzes with emails, notifications, calendar reminders that my life is still moving forward despite the personal earthquake. I have a meeting at 9, a conference call at 11, and 3 project deadlines this week. None of my colleagues know what happened last night. None of them will. I eat slowly, making the meal last, and I watch the morning rush of people flowing through the diner. Construction workers ordering coffee in bulk. Nurses finishing night shifts. Truck drivers fueling up before long hauls. Everyone has a story. Everyone is fighting battles nobody sees. And I'm just another face in the crowd, which is exactly what I need right now. My phone buzzes again, and I glance at the screen. An email from my lawyer with the subject line, "Final documents ready for review." My pulse quickens, and I have to resist the urge to open it immediately in public. Instead, I flag it as important and finish my coffee. This email represents 3 years of work, hundreds of sleepless nights, and risks my family would have mocked if they'd known. The timing is almost too perfect, getting kicked out now just days before everything goes public. It's like the universe has a twisted sense of narrative structure. I pay my bill with exact change, leave a $2 tip that I can't really afford but leave anyway because I remember what it's like to serve people who don't see you, and I head back to my car. The next 48 hours blur together in a strange rhythm of survival and preparation. I drive to a gym where I have a membership I've barely used and shower there each morning. I work from my laptop in coffee shops, nursing a single cup for hours while using their Wi-Fi. I sleep in my car in different locations each night, a Walmart parking lot, a residential street where my sedan blends in, back to the diner. I eat cheap, ramen noodles, peanut butter sandwiches, dollar menu items. Every penny counts now because I don't know how long this limbo will last. But here's what my family doesn't know. This struggle is temporary. This discomfort is a bridge, not a destination. And I've crossed harder bridges than this. On the second night, parked outside a 24-hour grocery store, I finally allow myself to open the email from my lawyer. The documents are dense, filled with legal terminology that I've learned to parse over the past 3 years. Acquisition agreements, stock options, non-disclosure clauses, press release timelines. My company, the tech platform I built in secret, the hobby my parents dismissed without ever actually asking about, has just been acquired by a major corporation. The number is staggering, more money than my parents will earn in their combined lifetimes. The press release goes live tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. By 9:30, my face will be on local news. By 10, the story will hit regional business journals. By noon, it will be everywhere. I close the laptop slowly, my hands trembling slightly, and I stare out at the parking lot where a young couple loads groceries into their trunk, laughing about something private. Tomorrow, everything changes. Tonight, I'm still just a woman sleeping in her car, invisible to the world. And there's something beautiful about this moment. The calm before the storm, the last breath before the plunge. I recline my seat, pull my jacket over my shoulders, and close my eyes. When I wake up, I'll be someone different. Someone my family never believed I could be. The secret started small, so small they barely registered as deception. 3 years ago, I stopped mentioning work achievements at family dinners because the inevitable comparison to Michael's latest accomplishment always followed. That's nice, honey. Did you know your brother just completed his certification for international flights? My promotions became invisible, my project successes unspoken. But somewhere in that silence, I discovered something powerful. Invisibility breeds freedom. If they weren't watching, they couldn't criticize. If they weren't listening, I couldn't disappoint them. So I stopped reporting, stopped seeking validation, stopped offering them windows into my actual life. And in that void, I built an empire they couldn't see. It started with a problem I encountered at my day job: inefficient data integration systems that cost companies millions in lost productivity. I mentioned it to my manager, suggested a solution, and watched the idea get shelved due to budget constraints. So, I built it myself. Nights and weekends, hunched over my laptop in my small apartment, teaching myself advanced coding languages through online courses. I maxed out 2 credit cards buying server space and development tools. I survived on coffee and 4 hours of sleep. My family noticed I looked tired at holiday gatherings. "You should take better care of yourself, Jessica," my mother said, her tone suggesting I was failing at basic self-maintenance. They never asked why I was tired, never wondered what I was working on. Their disinterest became my shield. 6 months into development, I had a working prototype. Not perfect, but functional enough to demonstrate value. I started reaching out to potential investors through LinkedIn, cold emails, networking events I attended alone. The rejection was brutal at first, 27 investor meetings before I got my first yes. A small venture capital firm took a chance on me, not because they fully believed in the product, but because my pitch showed the kind of desperate hunger that sometimes precedes success. $50,000 in seed funding. It felt like winning the lottery. I told my family I got a small bonus at work. They nodded distractedly and changed the subject to Michael's upcoming trip to Dubai. The platform launched quietly 18 months ago, with 3 pilot companies testing it. The results were immediate and dramatic: a 42% increase in data processing efficiency, projected cost savings in the millions annually. Word spread through industry networks the way wildfire travels through dry brush. More companies wanted in. My phone started ringing with venture capitalists I hadn't even contacted. Series of funding came faster than I dreamed, $2.3 million. I hired developers, rented office space, and built a team of 12 brilliant people who believed in the vision. And through it all, I told my family nothing. At Thanksgiving dinner, while they toasted Michael's promotion, I was negotiating a contract worth 7 figures. The irony was delicious. My double life became increasingly complex. During the day, I maintained my regular job, the one my family knew about, the one they considered mediocre. Evenings and weekends belonged to my company, which had grown beyond anything I'd imagined. I was featured in a tech industry podcast under a professional pseudonym I'd created to avoid family discovery. I spoke at a conference in Chicago, telling the audience my startup story while carefully omitting identifying details. My LinkedIn profile became a carefully curated fiction, accurate enough to avoid suspicion, but vague enough to hide the magnitude of what I was building. My family never looked at it anyway. Why would they? I was disappointed, remember? The acquisition talks started 4 months ago. A major tech corporation saw what I'd built and wanted to integrate it into their enterprise solutions. The numbers they proposed made me physically dizzy. We negotiated for weeks, their team of lawyers against mine, a David and Goliath scenario, except David had built something Goliath desperately needed. My lawyer kept telling me to stay calm, to not show desperation, to remember my leverage. But sitting in those conference rooms, presenting my technology to executives earning 8-figure salaries, I kept thinking about my father's voice. "You're nothing, Jessica. You have nothing." The fuel that anger provided was more powerful than any motivational poster. The final acquisition agreement was signed 6 days before my family threw me out. The timing is something I'll never stop marveling at. Cosmic comedy or cosmic justice, I haven't decided which. The money would hit my account in stages, The press release would go out on a predetermined schedule, and my name would be attached to everything. No more hiding. No more pseudonyms. Jessica Morgan, founder and CEO, would be public knowledge. I knew this moment was coming. I'd prepared for it mentally, rehearsed conversations, and imagined scenarios. But I never imagined I'd be homeless when it happened. Never imagined I'd be sleeping in my car when my face appeared on the news. The universe apparently has a flair for dramatic irony. And in less than 24 hours, my family's entire perception of reality is about to shatter. They think they threw out trash. They're about to discover they threw out a diamond. And I'm going to enjoy every second of watching them realize it. The house feels different after I leave, though my father won't admit it for another 36 hours. He settles into his recliner that first night, remote in hand, and tells himself he did the right thing. Tough love. Necessary intervention. A parent's duty to stop enabling failure. My mother cleans my room the next morning, boxing up remnants of my life with the efficiency of someone packing away seasonal decorations. "We should donate most of this," she tells Emma, who hovers in the doorway looking uncomfortable. She won't need it where she's going. Neither of them can articulate where exactly they think I'm going. A shelter? A friend's couch? They don't know because they never bothered learning who my friends are, where I spend my time, what my life actually looks like beyond their dismissive assumptions. Emma tries calling me first. 7 times over 2 days. Each call goes straight to voicemail because I've blocked their numbers, not out of spite, but because I need space to breathe without the constant gravitational pull of their judgment. She texts, "Jess, please just let us know you're okay." Then, "Mom and Dad are worried even if they won't say it." Then, "I'm worried. Please." I read each message, but didn't respond. The silence is intentional, calculated. I need them to sit in the uncertainty they created. I need them to feel a fraction of the invisibility I've felt for 32 years. Emma means well, she always has, but she's still complicit. Silence is easier than defending me. I understand it, but I don't forgive it. Not yet. By the second day, the cracks started showing. My mother finds a card tucked inside one of my old books, a birthday card from 6 years ago that I'd written to myself because nobody else remembered. "Happy 26th birthday, Jessica. You're going to be someone amazing. Don't let them convince you otherwise. Love, future you." My mother stares at it for a long time, my younger self's handwriting looping across the drugstore card I'd bought with my own money. Something about it unsettles her, though she can't name what.
She shows it to my father.
He glances at it, grunts, and returns to his newspaper. "Dramatic," he mutters. "Always so dramatic." But my mother tucks the card into her pocket instead of throwing it away, and that small act of preservation suggests something is shifting. The real unraveling begins with a chance encounter. My father runs into one of his old colleagues at the hardware store, a man who once worked with him before retiring 5 years ago. "Hey, Morgan," the man calls out, approaching with a smile. "Saw your daughter on LinkedIn the other day. Quite the success story she's building." My father's brain stutters, trying to process. "My son is a pilot," he responds automatically, defaulting to the script. The colleague looks confused. "No, I meant Jessica. Read an article about her in Tech Quarterly. That platform she developed is revolutionizing data integration. You must be so proud." My father's face does something complicated, confusion melting into suspicion, melting into something that might be concerned. He mumbles something noncommittal and escapes the conversation, but the seed of doubt has been planted. He goes home and does something unprecedented. He Googles my name. Not just a casual search, but a deep dive through links he's ignored for years. And what he finds makes his coffee cup pause halfway to his lips. Articles. Multiple articles. Rising tech entrepreneur to watch. Jessica Morgan's platform gains industry attention. A podcast interview from 3 months ago where I discussed building a business while working full-time. A conference panel where my name appears alongside industry veterans. And photographs, me in professional settings, speaking at podiums, shaking hands with people whose companies he recognizes. His brain cannot reconcile these images with the loser he threw out 2 nights ago. The cognitive dissonance is physical, nauseating. Honey, he calls my mother, his voice strange. You need to see this. They spend the next 3 hours falling down the rabbit hole of my secret life. With each new discovery, the foundation of their reality cracks further. My mother's hands shake as she scrolls through my professional achievements. How did we not know? She whispers. Emma, summoned to the living room, looks at the screen and her face collapses. I tried to tell you, she says quietly. Last Christmas, I mentioned she was working on something big. You said she was probably exaggerating. The accusation hangs in the air. My father, defensive, tries to rationalize. These could be exaggerations. Online personas. People make themselves look more successful than they are. But even as he says it, he doesn't believe it. The evidence is too substantial, too documented, too real. That night, neither of them slept well. My father lies awake remembering every dismissive comment, every comparison to Michael, every time he interrupts my attempts to share something about my life. My mother mentally catalogs the graduations she missed, the achievements she ignored, the moments she chose Michael over me without thinking twice. The guilt arrives slowly, then all at once crushing. By morning, they're both exhausted and rattled. And then, at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, the press release goes live. My mother is pouring coffee when her phone lights up with a news alert. She glances at it casually, then freezes. The mug slips from her hand, shattering against the tile floor in an explosion of ceramic and dark liquid. My father rushes in. What happened? He demands. My mother can't speak. She just holds out her phone, hand trembling, screen displaying a headline that rewrites everything they thought they knew. Local tech company acquired for $50 million. Founder Jessica Morgan's journey from startup to success. Below it, a photograph of me in a navy suit, shaking hands with the CEO whose face appears in financial magazines. My father reads the headline 3 times. His face goes pale. And in that moment, he understands they didn't throw out a failure. They threw out the most successful members of their family. And she smiled when she left because she already knew it. The morning of the press release, I'm sitting in a coffee shop 3 miles from my parents' house, laptop open, watching the clock tick toward 9 a.m. I've changed locations to avoid the diner routine, somewhere busier, more anonymous, where I can disappear into the crowd of remote workers and students. My coffee has gone cold, but I keep my hands wrapped around the cup anyway, needing something to anchor me. At 8:57, my lawyer sent a text. It's happening. The press release goes live in 3 minutes. Are you ready? I type back. As ready as I'll ever be. But my hands are shaking, betraying the calm I'm trying to project. This is it. The moment 3 years of secret work becomes public knowledge. The moment I stop being invisible. At exactly 9 a.m., my phone explodes. Notifications cascade down the screen faster than I can read them. Email alerts. LinkedIn messages. Texts from colleagues. The PR firm I hired starts forwarding media requests. Local news wants interviews. Business journals want quotes. A morning show producer wants me on tomorrow. I open the press release with trembling fingers, and there it is. My full name, my photograph, the company I built described in glowing terms. Jessica Morgan's innovative platform has revolutionized data integration across multiple industries, attracting the attention of tech giant Cortex Solutions, which acquired the startup for a reported $50 million. The number sits there on my screen, impossible and real simultaneously. I've read this release a dozen times in draft form, but seeing it live, published, spreading across the internet in real time makes my chest tighten with something between panic and exhilaration. The local news station picks it up first. By 9:23 a.m., it's their top business story. I watch the segment on my phone, volume low, headphones in. The anchor's voice is cheerful and surprised. A feel-good story out of Springfield this morning. Local entrepreneur Jessica Morgan has just made headlines with the sale of her tech startup for a stunning $50 million. The 32-year-old founded the company just 3 years ago while working full-time, building it nights and weekends into an industry game-changer. They cut to footage from a conference where I spoke 6 months ago, my face filling the screen. I look confident up there, professional, like someone who belongs. The anchor continues. Morgan's platform addresses data integration inefficiencies that cost companies millions annually. Industry experts say her solution is elegant, effective, and long overdue. They display screenshots of testimonials from Fortune 500 companies that use my platform. Then they promise to reach out for an exclusive interview. I imagine my parents' living room right now. My mother is pouring coffee, my father is reading the newspaper. Both of them are still processing yesterday's Google search revelations. And then this news breaks. I imagine my mother's face, that moment when the headline registers, when my name penetrates the fog of morning routine. Does the coffee cup slip from her hands? Does my father's newspaper crumple in his grip? Do they stare at the television in stunned silence, unable to reconcile the disgrace they threw out with the CEO shaking hands with corporate executives on screen? The satisfaction I feel is complicated, layered with vindication and sadness, and a twisted kind of grief. I wanted them to be proud of me. Instead, I had to become undeniable before they'd even look. My phone rings, Michael's number flashing on screen. I stare at it through 4 rings before declining the call. Immediately, he texts, "Jess, I just saw the news. Holy shit. We need to talk. Please call me." Then another. "I had no idea. Why didn't you tell us?" The question is so absurd it almost makes me laugh. Why didn't I tell the family that spent 32 years making me feel worthless? Why didn't I share my dreams with people who crushed them reflexively? Why didn't I invite criticism from experts and disappointment? I type out 3 different responses and delete them all. Finally, I sent, "I'm busy. We'll talk when I'm ready." He starts typing immediately. I can see the 3 dots dancing on screen, but I lock my phone and slide it face down on the table. By 10:30 a.m., the story had spread beyond local news. Business journals pick it up. Tech blogs run features. My LinkedIn profile views skyrocket, from typical background noise to thousands of hits per hour. Congratulatory messages flood in from old classmates I haven't spoken to in a decade, from former colleagues, from industry contacts. Everyone wants a piece of the success story, wants to claim they always knew I had potential, and wants to be retroactively supportive. I responded to a few, the people who actually helped along the way, mentors who took me seriously when I was nobody. The rest get left on read. Success has a funny way of attracting attention from people who were absent during struggle. I'm learning to distinguish between celebration and opportunism. The coffee shop television switches to a new news broadcast, and there I am again. Different segment, same story, slightly different angle. From Springfield to Silicon Valley, how one local woman built a tech empire in secret. The cheer scrolls across the bottom. Jessica Morgan, founder and CEO. They interview someone from the acquiring company who says,